an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Fleabag, Season 1, Episode 6. In this episode, we go to this exhibition. We break up with the cute boy. We double break up with ex-boyfriend. We get asked to leave by our dad. And there's a whole other thing that also happens. I won't talk about it. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you, I guess, to Gabriela for commissioning this episode. Somebody in the patron group a few weeks ago said something like, we've got to stop commissioning shows that make Natasha go through an hour of therapy every week. I don't remember who said this. It might have been Tori. Agreed. You guys, I was not ready for the level of fucking heartbreak of this episode. Holy shit. It's going to be a real struggle for me to talk about this from beginning to end before getting into the thing. But I'm determined to do it. Otherwise, I won't ever get to the beginning to end part. And it's important. There are some shows where I feel comfortable just talking about a large event, and I feel like as long as I finish discussing that, I really will have done the episode justice, because that was what we were all there for. That major event was like, you know, the hinge that the plot fell on. And instead, this show feels like all the little stuff matters as much. It's just overshadowed to a degree by the brutality of the rest of the plot, this internal thing that's going on. So I'm going to start off from the start. We have this moment where Fleabag is getting railed by a sexy man in his apartment, and he is flipping her from one position to another. And eventually he gets soft, and it's very obvious that's what's happening. And she does this, like, she explains to the audience that she has been through this before, and that men, when they begin to realize that they are in love with you, they have trouble keeping it up because all of the blood goes from their penis to their hearts. And she says this with a certain amount of, there's certainly amusement, resignation. It's clear that she does not feel about this guy the way she thinks at this point he feels about her. But she doesn't really seem bothered by that. And later on, when he's telling her he's in love and she still thinks he means her, she doesn't seem like she's at all interested in being like, I'm really sorry, I don't feel the same way. But there's also this sort of surprising lack of pressure that I was a little bit surprised by, where she doesn't feel any sort of obligation to say it back to him, which is really what tends to be the thing that trips people up. When someone tells you they love you, you feel like you are expected to say it back. And what if you don't feel that way? But she doesn't seem to be having that problem, which makes sense because by then she's already feeling horrific and is looking for anybody to love her. And so it makes sense that she wouldn't really put up a fight on this. But I would have expected her to be a little bit more agitated, at least, about what he expects her to say. But regardless, that is the cold open. And then she wakes up to find him watching her. And she he tells her that he has to wait to find the words to say what he needs to say to her. And of course, she thinks this is mounting evidence that he has feelings for her, and she is just, sailing into this party later on with the full assurance that she is with somebody who loves her and is also incredibly attractive, so she can show him off permanently as a mark of success. He's a trophy boyfriend, really. Before he says any of that, she catches a glimpse of a pencil on the nightstand, and this throws her into a memory of her and Boo at the cafe, and she's reading a newspaper thing about a boy who used to anally penetrate hamsters with a pencil, and how he has been basically sent away to some sort of, what do you call it? Juvenile center. And Boo says, I don't understand. Why are they sending him away? He needs help. That's what the rubbers on the end of pencils are for. And she's like, what, for fucking hamsters? And Boo says, no, because people make mistakes. And this is just in light of what winds up happening later and what we find out. Her saying this is all the more devastating. Obviously, he's unhappy. Happy people wouldn't do things like that. And again, there's another bit of insight here. People make mistakes. And you see her looking at this pencil, and there's a very sad expression on her face, but we don't know at all what's really going on here. Now, I would be really curious for a show of hands from people who figured out what really happened before this reveal, because it didn't occur to me. And I told you guys what my interpretation was of the flash that we see of her undoing somebody's belt. It didn't feel sexual to me. And when I actually see the scene, it still doesn't feel sexual. And I feel like that's really appropriate. That it feels so impersonal. And so, he's being very lazy. There's a very sort of, what is it? Ralph Manning? Is that the name of the guy in Empire Records? Rex Manning. There's a moment where this girl, who has been dreaming about losing her virginity to him, he sits back and just unzips his fly and basically says, go to town. And all of a sudden she realizes that this is super nothing to him. He's planning on doing nothing, not wooing her. There's nothing actually sexual about it, and that's part of what makes it so creepy. And that was sort of how I felt about once we find out what's going on there. He's laying back and not unbuckling his pants himself. He isn't initiating, and it doesn't feel like he's even totally aware of what's happening because he's so drunk. And that's not to say that he really isn't aware, but there is a sense of she is taking the reins on this in a way that feels like she's taking advantage of him. And it's hard to say when both parties are really drunk, but I don't it's because we don't see much of the scene. It's really hard to know. All we saw was him put his hand on her shoulder and look at her. So I'm not trying to say this wasn't consensual, but it does feel like he doesn't feel like he's participating. Do you know what I mean? It's just weird. So once she monologues at the end, there's a little bit of an explanation as to why she is what she's worried about, what her motivations are, and her the fact that this doesn't feel sexual, that there doesn't feel like there's passion here. It's desperation and loneliness. It's sad. It's terrible. That makes sense, Karen says, I didn't figure it out until the reveal. Rachel says, I was blindsided. Okay, cool. Because, like, I know that for some people, you know, they figured out a variety of different twists in other shows I'm covering beforehand. But it didn't even occur to me. It didn't even occur to me. And I think a major part of the reason it didn't is because I have still been maintaining that she was in love with Boo. And that could still be true. It just, for me, it was sort of like, it was so completely off the table because I sort of wondered if she was either closet queer or maybe just straight up gay and fucking men just because she was sort of in denial about it. I thought there was going to be a twist surrounding that. And therefore, her doing something this hurtful to somebody that she loved so much, plus fucking a dude, and that being part of the result, just those things just never went into the concoction that I was throwing together. So we have the arrival at the sex position and fucking Godmother. You guys, first of all, her whole outfit is so perfect. She's wearing this like oversized, almost looks like men's shirt. And she has the kinds of flats that tie around the ankles, almost looking like ballet shoes with leggings. It's just such a perfect, like, artsy, but incredibly expensive, privileged, bougie artsy in a way that feels false, even though that's not entirely fair. And I just, what it winds up being is that she hands a tray of drinks over and puts a sticker on Fleabag's chest that says, I'm here to help, and expects her to hand out drinks and basically be staff. All right. I am going to jump ahead a little bit here because I have to. I do not think Fleabag did anything wrong when it came to dumping those drinks and breaking those glasses and causing a scene. There, I said it. She was right. Her dad is wrong. Godmother's wrong. Everybody else is wrong. The problem is that she doesn't make it clear why she's doing it. She just is being, it appears from the outside, petulant, petty, and generally sulking like a child. However, we have seen the way that she's been treated. So, in my opinion, she maintains her cool for way, way longer than I ever would. And that's part of what makes this show so heartbreaking, is that we don't get the satisfying outburst of somebody being told off the way they deserve, because that's really not how life often works out. Sometimes it is, but usually it goes more like this, where you bite your tongue, you don't say everything you want to say, the perfect moment alone with whomever you need to talk to never really comes, they don't actually witness the shit that you want to tell them about, and you feel like listing it all off is going to make you look like you're keeping score and make you look super petty and childish. But, oh my God, when she starts dumping those drinks, I was fucking cheering. I was so excited because I thought she was finally going to say, I mean, in that scene, Godmother says out loud, the joys of having butterfingered staff. I mean, maybe she could pretend that that was a joke because that's what passive-aggressive people do. But literally, in front of this man, she's calling his daughter staff. And later on, when she's with her father outside, he has the absolute unmitigated gall to say something like, people always talk about women being fucked up by their fathers, but nobody ever talks about how it happens the other way around. I'm sorry. What the fuck did you just say to me? Did you just say that your child, fucked you up? Now, that is not to say that isn't something that happens. However, you are with a woman that you have seen slap her across the face and you did fucking nothing. You saw her be assigned to hand out drinks and you did fucking nothing. I cannot tell you how my brain nearly exploded at that line, and she doesn't say anything to him. That's what's so heartbreaking, is she is so worn down and hates herself so much that to a degree, she clearly thinks she deserves this. No. You know, like his whole monologue later of, I'm going to say this once, I deserve to be happy. Like she's just acting up because he had the nerve to replace her mother. Holy shit, man. You could not be missing the point more. And it feels purposeful. It does not feel like he's just misunderstanding. We have seen him witness shit that he should be horrified by and isn't. So it's not the fact that he doesn't know, it's that he doesn't give a fuck. So in short, I would like him to die. Her life would be better if her dad was dead, because he sucks, his godmother girlfriend sucks, and he is making her feel guilty about shit that he is way, way too much of a coward to deal with. And he's acting like that shit is her responsibility, and it's fucking not, dude. You know, if you really don't want your daughters around, then don't invite them to shit. Don't, you know, like, do whatever you need to do. But stop putting them in a position where they have to be around to be abused. And like in this like toxic situation where they can't even talk about their mother without this woman interrupting. Why is she the one that even makes you happy? Like where, how, why? Seriously? Honestly, look at that. So I just 100% am Team Fleabag on this. Her dad is a piece of shit. There is nothing that makes me more enraged than people being cowardly in regard to standing up for folks that are supposed to be on their side. That is, you know, I've talked about this before as being like a factor in my divorce, literally. Not feeling like my partner was on my side or gave a shit when I was being mistreated or talked about or anything. And it's just, for me, that's like the bare minimum expectation when you are in a relationship, is that people be ready to like have your back. And that doesn't necessarily always mean agreeing with them, but that's not the same thing, you know? And I cannot. The fact that she is able to manipulate him so easily, it's not a testament to the godmother being great at manipulation. It's a testament to her picking a partner who was easy to manipulate because he is a coward. She went for this dude because she saw his giant fucking weak spot on his back labeled power button, and she just fucking went for it, and he just let her. So I don't feel bad for him. I can't believe that he expects anybody to. And I'm so angry at the fact that Fleabag does not call him out on that. I understand that she feels like she deserves it. I still wanted her to scream at him. It doesn't make sense in character. It really doesn't. But I really wanted her to. So, as we get past this moment of her being handed the glasses, oh my God, and her fucking date takes one and then just literally walks away from her. Oh, God. I love her giving her speech, her godmother, about the point behind the sexhibition. And she's talking about it opens people's minds. Sex got us all here. Sex brings life. And as she says that, we cut to Boo sobbing, crying. And I was thinking that she killed herself because he cheated, so sex sometimes brings death, which it is, but it's a lot more than that. And obviously, sex brings life is not the approach that Fleabag is taking to life, because as we see later, she really treats sex as this desperate validation. And it's just not, that's not the thing. Oh my God. Her talking about the first time that she climaxed when she was 11 by accident on a bidet. The bidet, of course, is exhibited here, as are all the pieces from my first ever sexhibition. By accident on a bidet. Can you imagine? My God. So she says, a few weeks ago, one of my most delicate pieces was stolen from my studio. I had no idea that that piece was something she had made. Is that, like, was that made clear to anybody else? I had no idea that was supposed to be her artwork. Because I think the fact that she said it's worth thousands made me feel like she had it appraised by somebody else, not that she was giving an estimation of the worth of her own work. And for some reason, I found that even more enraging. In a sense, it was a blessing. Her brutal snatching made me think of all the women in the world who have been robbed of their freedom, of their happiness, and in the saddest of cases, of their bodies. So in many ways, I have to thank the thief for creating my most profound piece of work today, A Woman Robbed. And she points to this pedestal that has nothing on it. Oh my God. I love Fleabag looking around at all the people applauding with this look like she's smelling something rotten and can't figure out where it's coming from. Oh my God. I found that so fucking, like, that whole moment is so good. So she goes and joins up with her date, who is looking at a wall of penises and asks if it's weird that his mouth is watering. I loved that so much. I really, like, just examine that, dude. Like, it's fine. Maybe you're bi. Whatever. I kind of thought that's what they were going to reveal, was that, like, you know, maybe he was realizing that he was queer and he was going to tell her that was why he lost his erection, and that he didn't think he was actually interested in her. But it turns out that there is indeed another woman involved. But yeah, this wall of dicks, it's actually kind of fascinating. I won't lie. Like the concept of how different a dick is from person to person is truly interesting to me. Just like, I always am, like, I feel the same way for women. It's just, we see like one representation of genitalia for a lot of our lives, and that is usually through porn. And there's like an acceptable size and girth for dudes, and there is an acceptable like shape and color for women. And those are what are deemed the way that body part looks. And so if yours don't look anything like that, it just leads to this deep insecurity and this shame that's like so undeserved and so arbitrary, really, when you stop and think about it. And I just really appreciate being reminded that men are as different from one to another as women, you know? So anyway, this leads to this moment that was truly embarrassing in such a good way, where Godmother is asking whether or not she has found her father on that wall. And she says something very smug about, like, it's just so very obvious to me. And Fleabag looks, and she picks one out and points, and it turns out that is correct. And her godmother's face falls, and she just says, yeah. Oh, Connor, and walks away and looks deeply upset about this. And I find this so interesting. Is it that it's just the fact that she might be able to tell what her dad's dick looks like? Is it that simple of just like, how did you get that right? Or is it something more, which is what I think. And what I think is she wants to have ownership of this dude so bad, and ownership of all their experiences so bad, that that smug little comment about, oh, it's just so obvious to me, was meant to indicate, I know something about your father that even you don't. This weird territoriality. And then when it turns out his daughter could get it right, it was taking even that away from her. And I think that was the problem. You know, this just like, oh my God, there is nothing about, like, that isn't shared about him. That's only mine, which is sort of hilarious. Also, I would really like to know why Fleabag made that guess. Where did she get that from? Overall, I am just in love with this short scene. What a weird thing to do, and I just really appreciated it. So then we have the scene of her getting dumped, and the awful moment where she thinks that he's in love with her, and then she realizes that he's not only not in love with her, but dumping her. And it's such an odd scene because she wants, when she says something, he says like, I'm sorry that I've led you on. And she says, oh no, oh God, no, my ex is due back any day now anyway. So it's, I'm happy for you. And he says something like, I knew you wouldn't give a shit. And she says, yeah, well, what can I say? I'm sorry, I don't give a shit. And the thing is, I don't think that's even that untrue. She doesn't give a shit about him, but that's not the point. That's not it here, you know? So he kisses her goodbye and just says, cool. Never wear padding, okay? Oh my God, dude, why? Stop it. What are you doing? And she goes back inside and runs into her ex, who, it turns out, model for her godmother. And apparently Fleabag didn't even realize this. His penis is up on the wall. It's not on him and his like figure that's standing in the middle of the room. She sees him and throws her arms around him and says, it's so good to see you, with this vibe of such honest relief that it makes what happens next so much sadder, because we know that their relationship is toxic, right? Neither of them is ever going to be happy in that relationship. But also, she was very specifically gaslighting her boyfriend for just convenience. Like, she was the bad guy in that relationship. She was totally shitty to him. So, in that respect, thank God that he has moved on. And in that respect, one would think that when I saw the two of them together again, I would just be like, oh my God, you better not try anything. But because I just know how hurt she is right now, the way that she hugs him is so much more upsetting, because I'm like, I don't want to root for her to like successfully manipulate this guy again. I don't. But also a part of me is like, I just wish she could get some relief from feeling this way. You know, I like, it's as simple as that. So they're joined by his girlfriend, obviously, who is this beautiful, really like tactful, I'm just going to go browse around. It was really nice meeting you. That's Elaine. And this just turns into, first of all, her trying to compete by saying that she has this really cute guy there with her. Then telling him that she's been dumped. I think, because like initially my reaction was, why would you tell him that if you're trying to show off that you also have a cute boyfriend? And then I realized, oh, she's trying to make it clear that she's single and available, because she still thinks, and she mentions to him that he has left some stuff at her apartment, and is trying to convince him to come over again. And he says that she can just keep it all, which obviously has never happened before. And that like provokes her into asking what we sort of find out later is like the big question, which is, do you still wank to me sometimes? And he just looks at her and says, no, with this like pitying expression. And that she's like just swallows and watches him go. And we are going to talk about that. So this whole time she's been waiting for Claire and has been wondering where the fuck she is. And this is when Claire shows up with Martin. And we cut to her getting handed a tray by Godmother. Can you find something to do with these? And she goes in the back, she gets very drunk, and then she proceeds to make a scene. And again, I do not think that she was wrong for this. So she makes this scene. They say that she's going to be the one to clean it up, which she does, which again, fucking why? No. Oh my God. I fucking love Godmother starting to cry and her saying, oh, fuck off. Yes. I'm just going to say this once. I deserve to be happy. I am allowed to move on. I have a good life and I am happy. All right? Dude, that is not what this is about. Stop it. Stop it. It's just him so trying to completely abdicate responsibility for the situation. It's such garbage. And this is immediately followed by her sister meeting her in the dressing room and her saying, what the fuck is he doing here? And this is exactly what I was worried about. And we see, too, that her sister's got her hair partially crimped, which I think is meant to be like a nod to her trying to reinvent herself when she's going through some serious shit. And she says to Fleabag, he didn't try to kiss you. He says it was more like the other way around. You guys. And she says, Claire, he came out into the garden. You have to believe me. How can I believe you? Because I'm your sister. After what you did to Boo? And that's when we get the moment of realizing what the fuck. That the undoing of the belt was her about to fuck Boo's boyfriend, which was the motivating factor in her pretending to attempt suicide and her death. Basically, she feels like she killed her best friend. Now, we're going to come back to that, obviously, but first, we're going to talk about Claire. Look. The fatal thing about me saying, fuck you, Claire, fuck you forever, is not that her argument doesn't make some rational sense. The thing is that it does make some rational sense. But the problem is that it's rational. And as a sister, that's not how she should be seeing this. She needs to go with her gut, and I believe she knows her husband is lying. I believe that it's too easy to stay with him. It's too easy to not break her pattern and go for what she actually wants in life. And so she is willing to fall back on an explanation that makes, quote, rational sense, because really she is too afraid. And that's the heart of it, not the fact that she doesn't believe her sister. And what's so despicable to me is that I do 100% believe she really does know her husband is lying. And she's choosing not to believe her sister. I think that's a choice that she's making. I truly do. And that means she's choosing to abandon what I would argue is her best friend, and probably Fleabag's as well. Nothing will ever be the same between them from now on, in favor of keeping the peace in her household. And that is gross and embarrassing and shameful and cowardly and shitty. I don't know if Claire's ever going to be able to win me back, if that is indeed a point of the rest of the show. In my opinion, when you choose not to believe somebody who accuses another person of having come onto them, that kind of lack of trust is not something that person will ever forget again. That's just, you are doubting something so fundamentally, like, what kills me too is that she knows what happened between Fleabag and Boo's boyfriend, evidently, because she throws that in her face. So if she knows that, that means Fleabag told her, because there's no way anybody would know. She wouldn't tell anybody. So that, first of all, that indicates just how good a friend her sister was to her, that she would even share that in the first place. But secondly, that her sister really doesn't believe Fleabag learned a lesson at all from what she did. She really thinks you would just do that same shit again. And I had something happen. First time I was engaged, we split up. And we split up because I met someone else. And he was very hurt by it. And he was alone with my mother because she came to the apartment to get something because I had moved out already. And he asked her out. And it was the kind of thing that, like, I immediately just wanted to break all the windows in his car. I was just like, what the fuck? Are you serious? And my mother waited to bring it up until he had also moved out of that apartment and I wouldn't know where to find him. And she told me and started crying and asked if I was mad at her. If I was mad at her. Because I would think she had done something to invite it. My mother, guys, was worried I was going to think she had done something to, like, seduce my fiance. Like, that's how fucking brainwashed women are. Truly, in our hearts, we don't think people will believe us. And to watch her sister not only say that she doesn't believe her, it's not that simple. She is closing the door on their entire relationship. That's what that was. She was being dumped in favor of this smug, smirking, fucking piece of shit standing next. It's truly awful. It's awful before Boo even gets brought up. And that is really the icing on the cake. Because she sees that as her explanation of why she doesn't believe her sister. What it really is a bullet. You know, it's just, it's her proving she is not to be trusted with those kinds of secrets because they will be used against you at some point. Yeah, it's that simple. You cannot throw that kind of shit in someone's face and think they're ever going to look at you the same way again. I mean, my God, you know. So this is when basically Fleabag, like, entirely shuts down Guys, her face in this scene was so... My God, it was just so hard to watch because you can see her trying to nod, almost like she's saying to her sister, yeah, no, I get it. Like she's trying to indicate, maybe I deserve it. Ugh. And then the reaction she has, she turns and looks into the camera and she backs away from it. And it's really like this moment of her trying to hide from the revelation. It's like us in our own heads when we touch a memory that's too sharp and pull away from it, you know, like we've been burned. And that's what she's doing, but it's a camera that's being like, oh, did you do that shit? Did you? And then we see her talking to Boo. So it's really clear, it's made very clear to us as viewers, she had the opportunity to tell Boo the truth. It wasn't like Boo found out and killed herself. It wasn't like Boo knew it was her and killed herself as a result of this betrayal by her friend. Boo found out he had cheated, but did not know it was Fleabag. And she couldn't bear to tell her. And she didn't. And she even was told by Boo that Boo was going to make an effort to hurt herself. And she did not stop her from enacting this plan. So this is followed. We have rejection by asshole guy. Rejection by Henry. Is that Harry, her ex-boyfriend? Rejection by her sister. Then goes outside, runs into her dad, has that fucked up conversation with him, and he sees her godmother standing there and tells her she should leave, which is clearly him choosing his wife over her. So that's, let's see, boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, sister, father. So that's 4 in a row. When she just is already feeling so low about herself to begin with because of what happened with Boo. It's clear she has not fucking recovered from that shit. So we see her finally, we see the scene that is in like the screen caps for this show all the time of her at like dawn walking down the street with tears streaming down her face and her going into the cafe. And she eventually goes and stands outside in the very same spot that Boo had been in. And it feels like she is about to try and do the same thing. She is really on the edge. And this fucking car pulls up and it's the guy from the bank. So he comes inside and tells her he had thought what she was looking for was a loan for a cafe for guinea pigs. He did not realize that it was guinea pig themed. And as he's looking around, he asks if she wants coffee or tea. There's a valiant attempt to make conversation, to try and lighten things up, because he can sense things are very bad for her. And this is when she launches into it. I would say fucked into liquidation. I fucked up my family. I fucked my friend by fucking her boyfriend. I sometimes wish I didn't even know that I fucking existed. I know that my body as it is now is really the only thing I have left, and when that gets old and unfuckable, I may as well just kill it. And somehow there isn't anything worse than someone who doesn't want to fuck me. I fuck everything. except from when I was in your office. I really wasn't trying to have sex. And either everyone feels like this a little bit and they're just not talking about it, or I'm completely fucking alone. Which isn't fucking funny. Y'all. Oh, God. That's a little bit too fucking exactly correct for me. I don't know about y'all. Especially as a woman, this is really how we are taught to feel about ourselves. Our one source of power in history has often been our looks. It can certainly also be the means by which we are controlled or destroyed. But women have been so institutionally disempowered that how we look has been the only thing that's ours. That's part of why, like, attempts to take more power away from women have included various types of mutilation, from genital to, like, throwing acid on a woman's face. Our bodies are it. That's all we've had. And as somebody who had been conventionally attractive and then gained a lot of weight so that I am no longer conventionally attractive, the change in power dynamic is so marked. And I'm still young, relatively. But I can only imagine how much more marked it will become as I continue to age. And when you have been taught your whole life that, well, if nothing else, at least you're pretty, is like at least a way to get by, it's no surprise that people begin to desperately hold on to youth in any way they can because they are terrified of losing their power, when that's all the power you have ever seemed to have. And that's the problem. If you feel empowered by other things, then you have that as your safety net and your life raft. But not everybody gets that to that point. You know, I have personally, in my business and succeeding at something that is very unique and that I feel like I'm sort of pioneering in a way. And that makes me feel empowered and strong and like I have something of my own. But I definitely was beginning to feel this way right around the time of my divorce. I was about to turn 30. I was in a dead-end job. I didn't even have my own bank account anymore because we had a joint account and we did everything through that. And my income was just so negligible, even though I worked so hard and so much. And it just felt like I was in the same place that I had been when I was 20, only I didn't look like I was 20 anymore. And with that came a real sense of like, what am I doing? Oh my God, I need to figure it out. I need to figure it out because time's running out was like this, the feeling behind that for me. And I still feel that way a lot. You know, people love to criticize women for getting a lot of plastic surgery and everything, but I get it. If I had the money, I would have done a bunch of stuff already by now. Like, just, I would. And certainly a lot of that is me having my feelings about aesthetic and wanting to look a certain way because I just love to look at shapes and faces like this. But I would be lying if I said that it wasn't at all due to being perceived a certain way by other people. And when I think about how much stronger my drive was to simply be fuckable when I was younger, it's absolutely devastating. I spent so much energy and so much time worrying about whether men were going to want to fuck me. And if I had just known what complete waste of time men would be, I would never. I just would never. But everything in the world tells you once you are not fuckable anymore, it's over. So make hay while the sun shines, basically. This is part of why representation is like talked about all the time. You only see a certain demographic on television or in movies by and large. It's just, you just start thinking that anything outside of that is abnormal. And so many women talk about feeling invisible by the time that they turn like 45 or 50. Invisible, just not a factor anymore. It's really true. So this really got to me. And the fact that she slept with Boo's boyfriend in this context is so much worse, because she can't even say she was drunk enough to not know what she was doing. She did. But it was her self-destructive streak, and it just, as luck had it, that wound up being more than self-destructive. And there's no taking that back. That's the thing about these kinds of mistakes, is even if she had told Boo, and Boo had been like, everybody makes mistakes, even if Boo had said that and seemed to be willing to try and forgive her, you still did that shit. And you have to remember that you did that shit every day. I would be lying if I said that I didn't feel this way about some of the ways that I handled my divorce. As a lot of you know, I split up with Brendan because of the fact that I was already like in an emotional relationship with Owen. And Brendan found out. It wasn't even like I had the balls to completely end things, although we had finally talked and decided to get a divorce by the time he found out. But I think we had agreed to get a divorce a couple months earlier, but I think that he sort of thought we might still be able to work it out, I think. So when he found out that I was talking to somebody, it was just this kind of divorce 2.0. Like, it was really hitting him the way that scene with Fleabag and her boyfriend inside hit her. He just didn't really think. And when he found out, it was more of a relief to me than anything, to be honest. And I immediately, that evening, I asked him if he wanted some space. He said yes. And I flew to Texas to see Owen for the first time. From that fight. Truly a horrific thing to do. And I can never take back that I decided to handle shit that way. I can never take back that I had somebody in my life who meant a lot to me and was basically at the time my best friend. And I shot that relationship in the head, and I did it knowingly. And I'll be honest, I don't entirely regret it either, because I am so happy with Owen, and I don't know if things would have worked out the same way if things went any differently. Fate can be weird. But if there were a way to go back in time and make it so that I had actually told him the truth and split up with him before everything got serious with Owen, I would do that. I would try to keep it from being the utter betrayal that it actually was. And I just have to live with myself every day knowing I decided to handle shit that way. That was my choice entirely. And it was an immature, selfish, petty thing to do. And in a lot of ways, one could say it was motivated by some of the same things that Fleabag is motivated by. Because when I split up with Brendan, we hadn't had sex for like a year. And here came another person making me feel fuckable. And it was this desperation that I was just so down on myself. And somebody said that they wanted me. And I didn't feel like anybody did. And so I let this like self-loathing and need for validation drive a decision that wound up costing me one of the longest and most important relationships of my entire life, platonic or romantic. And that was my doing 100%, you know? And there were all sorts of things that, sure, Brendan could have done and been better. But when it comes down to like how it ended and the way it ended, all of that is on me. And I know it, and I have to live with it. It's just, some things you just can't ever, ever take back. And you have to live with the fact that not only did you do it, but that even if the other person were to forgive you, which is highly unlikely, they are under no obligation to like tell you that they forgave you, that they are under no obligation to go on and pretend like that shit didn't happen, which a lot of people seem to confuse being forgiven with somebody acting as if that shit did not occur or doesn't have any lasting consequences. Forgiven doesn't mean no consequences. Forgiven means I will give you a chance to try again. That's all. But you have to deal with what the fallout of being forgiven is. And that's if they choose to forgive, which they are under no obligation whatsoever to do. And in this case, Boo can't. And to know that she kept her mouth shut the whole time. She knew that it was her that he had fucked. She knew that Boo was about to go and like fake attempt a suicide and didn't stop her and didn't say anything. It's just, there is just no excusing it. And that's what I really like about it. We have found out that this character did something that is truly unforgivable in a lot of ways. The kind of unforgivable where you want to be able to rationalize any aspect of the way she chose to handle things, and you can't. She made bad, selfish decisions every step of the way. And like, as viewers, we just have to deal with the fact that we have found out this thing about somebody that we otherwise have grown to like and decide what we would say from the outside about a girl like this. You know, like, if Boo came to us and told us this story, we would be like, oh my God, that horrible bitch. Never speak to her again. I can't believe anybody would do that. But meanwhile, we are in her shoes and we would give anything for her to be able to apologize and explain. When in life, I don't think any of us would be interested in letting her apologize or explain. Bitch, it's very simple, you know? It's just that it's not. But it is. It's, And so, the episode ends with, this dude saying, I should probably, like 7 times, and leaving, so we think. And so Fleabag clearly thinks also. And he goes to his car and gets a folder and comes back inside and says, why don't we start the interview fresh? And that, her answering the question, like, thank you for coming in. I see you run a cafe for guinea pigs. And her laughing and him saying, see, it is funny. And that's the end of the episode, is him starting this new application for her. And it's just such a beautiful moment. He says, everybody makes mistakes. And there's a sense almost of it being like Boo Beyond the Grave. Being like, you have to forgive yourself, you know? I don't think that's really it. But, and it's hard to say that to yourself when the mistake wound up costing your best friend her life. Like, it's not so easy. It's, you know, but it's a start. And I appreciate this beam of hope here. She has been rejected by everybody in her life, but she might get a second chance at this business that she created with her friend, which is the one way that she's managing to hang on to that friend after she's gone. And that's really beautiful and just awful. Just heartbreaking, you guys. Holy shit. I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready at all. And like I said, I just don't know that I'm going to be able to forgive Claire. I just cannot forgive her. Holy shit. Like, I just can't do it. I understand in an intellectual way, but that's just not enough, you know? Karen says, end of season 1. At the time, there were no plans for season 2. There was a 3-year gap between seasons. Oh my God, I didn't know that. 3 years. Shit. All right. Well, let's see when the next episode is scheduled for. April 9th, Friday. So a week from Friday. And, yeah, it looks like it's pretty steady on to the end of season 2. So we're all good. All right, everybody. Well, thank you all again so much for hanging out with me, except I hate you. And I hate you extra, especially the most, Gabriela. You're the worst. You're all very mean to me and make me feel emotions, and it's really awful and traumatic. So, thanks. But know that I love you. I do. But also I hate you. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.